Welcome, Emma, to this episode of the Legacy Life podcast. I really look forward to having a chat with you about your experience of writing a book, oh my gosh, and becoming a published author. So exciting. So welcome.
Thank you. It's really exciting to be here.
Welcome. So my first question to you is, what attracted you to get involved with this project?
That's a great question. A multitude of factors. I mean, the first being that I have been toying with the idea of writing for quite a long time. And so this felt like an opportunity that would allow me to do that. So that just in and of itself was really appealing. But then the other factors that came into play, the fact that it was a collaborative, not just on the lines of some of the pressure being taken away of having to, kind of author a whole book and being able to write part of it, but actually the spirit of collaboration. So my whole chapter is around connection and the power of connection. And so to me, doing things with other people, doing projects that create something that's bigger than the sum of its parts, because I believe that that's what happens when we work together, when we connect together.
Yeah,
that was incredibly appealing. And I just think it felt right. So one of the things that I've been working on a lot over the last few years is to be more responsive to my intuition and not ignore that little voice that kind of either is screaming at you that something doesn't feel right, no matter how much you're trying to kind of plow away, but also to listen to the things that really do and go with the things that feel easier, that feel right. Not easy as in, not challenging myself, that's not the case, but just that it feels right. And so for a number of reasons, it just felt like the right thing to do. So yeah, both spiritually, emotionally and intellectually, like this, no matter which way I looked at it, this just felt like something that I wanted to be on board with. So
I love that. When things kind of, I talk about alignment, and I'm just writing a couple of notes down while we chat, so if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. I'm just writing a couple of notes down. Spiritually, emotionally and intellectually felt right is what, I've just written down. It's just like that is what alignment is.
Yeah, absolutely.
When people, and people in my world talk about alignment a lot, and that's what it is, isn't it? When things feel right spiritually, emotionally and intellectually, and that's where that ease comes from.
It is.
You're talking about.
Yeah, it's when things just flow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that things are not challenging. It doesn't mean that you don't have to put in the hard work.
Yeah.
But it's that feeling that even when you're doing the hard work, even when you're faced with a challenge or something you don't know how to overcome, it still feels right and it still feels like it's flowing in the right direction.
Yeah. Yeah.
That for me is what alignment and flow is. It's not that we won't face bad times or challenging times, because that is the cycle of life, isn't it? There is life and there is death, and and that is what happens. But it's that even through the times that are challenging, you feel okay on the path that you're in, and you feel able to handle and able to deal with the things that are coming your way. And for me, that's what alignment and flow is. And I think the more aligned and in flow we are, the more we attract the positives and the less we attract the negatives.
Yeah.
But the negatives are part of life, and it's being able to kind of handle that. And yeah, so for me, this book was, writing this chapter was very challenging for me. So my part of the story that I've told about myself for years is that I am a very good verbal communicator and not so good when it comes to writing things down. So for a lot of years now, I've worked in a way that I speak and other people in my project teams do the writing. So so I've actually moved more away from writing in the last few years than ever before. And so for me, the idea of actually being the only person in control of writing down what I wanted to say was immensely challenging for me, like psychologically challenging. But despite that, it still felt like the right thing to do.
And so that's interesting, isn't it? Because, you know, flow alignment isn't all unicorns and rainbows. You know, it's not that's necessarily easy, you know. And there are challenges, but that those challenges are worth it. And what I love is when you come out the other side of that, that it transforms something in you, you know, that something then shifts that old story that you are telling yourself, that I'm not good at writing, I'm better, I'm a better verbal communicator, and how we construct our lives around these stories. That when we challenge that and when we do something that doesn't fit with that story, a new possibility opens up.
Absolutely. And again, part of my chapter is about recognizing those behaviors that maybe we've developed at a certain time in our life because they served a purpose at the time, like it was a coping mechanism or something that kept us safe, or, you know, something that we've done, but being able to sometimes recognize that those behaviors maybe no longer serve as a purpose where we are.
Yeah.
But our stories serve a purpose, you know, we are where we are because of what we've been through, and that's amazing. And I would never choose to not go through any of the things I've gone through, even the difficult bits, because they've all led me to where I am now.
Yeah.
But I can now choose to look back and take the lessons that I want to take and choose to leave behind some of the bits that no longer serve me a purpose.
Yeah.
And that's something that, you know, we can proactively choose to do, and something that I do regularly. I'm a very reflective practitioner. I think I've probably always been quite a reflective person, but my background is in youth and community and social work, you know, that kind of environment where you're working with others, where you're very much taught to be a very reflective in the way that you do things. So how did that go? What worked well? What didn't work well? What can we do differently next time? And I think that's something that's become embedded in just who I am and how I approach life, how I approach everything. If something feels difficult, it's a reflection. How could I change that? What else might I be able to do that gets me a different outcome?
Yeah. It's great to hear you know, talk about that that reflective practice that you have and that you've always had. It's such a valuable way of working, isn't it, to be able to reflect on and make those changes and adjustments and learn. That's how we learn from what we've been doing, isn't it?
And a big part of what I've chosen to do as a career involves putting people out of their comfort zone and enabling them to make those reflections and learn and make changes that they want to make as a result of that experience. It would be very it wouldn't feel right if I'm not able to kind of put myself in that same position that I regularly ask other people to get into, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that's called walking your talk, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, and often I do that with leaders. So I put them out of their comfort zone and get them to reflect on how often do you put your teams out of their comfort zone?
Yeah.
And what do you do to help them in that place? And they're like, because sometimes when we're irresponsible for others, we forget what that feels like, because we get to a place where maybe you don't have to do that as often.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think it's very good to put yourself in that position every so often.
Yeah, for sure. So what do you feel people will get out of reading your chapter, or what you hope they might get out of reading your chapter?
So I think my chapter is, as I said, is all about connection. And for years, building connection with other people has been the driving force of all the work that I've done. So be that in youth and community work, in some of the kind of consultancy work I've done, I've always had that flow within it. And also now my company, Shared Harmonies, is all about connecting people.
And that's how we met, wasn't it? Many years ago.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And through the idea that, that we can use creative mechanisms to bring people together and connect them. And I've talked a lot about that power of connection with other people, but when I started to reflect on it, I realized that there were actually two other forms of connection that were equally important, and that actually the three things kind of combine. And so there's that bit that we talked about a minute ago about connection to yourself, that ability to be really honest with yourself about who you are, how you work, what's important to you, what your boundaries are, what feels okay, what doesn't feel okay, learning to listen to that intuition. And also that connection to something bigger than us. And so lots of people call that different things depending on their belief system. But that connection to spirit, or to religion, or to the fact that the world and the universe is like so much bigger and so much more incredible than we think, but that sense that we are connected to something bigger than we are, and that we and other people are, and that those three types of connection actually they can feed each other. And some might feel stronger at some times and serve more of a purpose, but they're all really important. They're all vitally important to help us.
There's three types: so self, others, and something bigger.
Yes. Yeah. And that we need all three to feel grounded, to feel connected to our purpose, to feel supported in achieving that, and to understand that we have the ability to influence something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah. And
that we're responsible for the impact that we have on something bigger than ourselves. And I think those I hope what people get from reading the chapter is an understanding of what I mean by those three different types of connection, why I believe, what my journey has been, and why I've come to believe that they're really important. But then I've also included potential exercises or tips or tools or techniques that people can potentially use to help them develop their practice in those areas. So things that might help them get more of a sense of who they are, or things that might help them connect more authentically with other people, because we've developed such poor societal practices in our connection with others, ability to not maintain eye contact, or to have very superficial connection with others. So many people literally go to work with their head buried in a phone or a device, and get to work and walk past people without saying good morning, and sit at a desk and email somebody that's sat next to them rather than turning and having a conversation, and then go home to a house surrounded by neighbours that they've never even introduced themselves to. We are surrounded by more people than ever, and yet people describe being lonelier than ever. And it's not that we're not connected to people, it's that we're not authentically, genuinely, vulnerably connected to other people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, and also kind of that there's also tips and ideas about how we can get that sense of kind of that universal connection. So I hope that what people would get is maybe being inspired, but also then being able to take some practical steps that work for them, that resonate with them, in order to develop that practice and then reap the benefits that I think people would get from feeling more connected. You know, we are literally born needing that connection, and the more we know ourselves, the stronger we feel in ourselves, the more genuine and authentic that connection with others becomes.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
more we're able to see the potential of our power in the world, you know, what we might be able to achieve. And that's why it felt such an important thing to include in this book about legacy, because, you know, unless we're really in touch with what our potential is, what our purpose is, what our passion is, we're diminishing our potential to achieve incredible things for ourselves, for others, for the world. You know, so knowing that gives us that potential to really shine and really make an impact.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it, that part? And that is a theme that comes up quite a lot through the book, you know, that connection to our purpose, to our passion, what lights us up, what is the driving force, what it is we came here to do, right? Why we're here. Like, yeah. Yeah, it's so important. And so, you know, your chapter being about awakening, it just made me think, as you were talking about this about connection, sorry, about the random acts of awakening, that where you know, ideas for ways in which people can reach out or can connect, that what that is about really is about connection, isn't it? It's about different ways of connecting. And so I was just wondering if any come to mind for you, you know, in terms of what people can do, what simple things people can do to connect with others, that will, you know, have this sense that would be a random act of awakening.
In terms of kind of connection to self, it would be often in lines of taking kind of quiet time. You know, often we're very busy, our minds are very busy, we have, lots of us have a tendency to overthink things or to focus on the things that feel like they've got our focus, and maybe not always the most positive things. It's often in that moment of quiet,
yeah,
other things are allowed to awaken and to surface. So, you know, I practice meditation, I practice Kundalini yoga, which I discovered a few years ago, which I just love. I absolutely love it. But there are lots of, you know, practices out there, and different ones work for different people, but it's that, you know, get out for a quiet walk in nature, do some meditation, just have some quiet thinking time, do some deep breathing, something that allows those quieter thoughts, those things that maybe we've kept hidden a little bit, to kind of rise to the surface. Learn to hear that inner voice, that intuition. Learn to sit and feel what feelings come up when we're experiencing things, rather than rush, you know, head first into it. So those things that allow us to connect. And in terms of connecting with others, I think it's about going back to basics.
yeah,
You know, actually really make eye contact with somebody when you're talking to them. Take the time to really listen to what somebody is saying to you and hear what they're saying, without thinking about what it is that you want to say next, or without thinking about what it is you need to make for tea, or what shopping you've forgotten to get, or without checking your phone. You know, like, genuinely take the time to really hear somebody. do something simple, like the next time you're about to message somebody, actually pick up the phone and call them. And instead of just getting straight to the point, ask them how they are. Have a conversation. Write somebody a letter. Do something that enables you to both allow somebody else to be a little bit more vulnerable and open up, or that allows you to be a little bit more vulnerable and open up, or both.
Yeah.
And I think, anything along those lines that just allow that slightly deeper connection. And I think these things are really important in the workspace as well, not just in the personal space, and I would really encourage people to think about, particularly now, particularly after a time where people have been really separated from their colleagues, where a lot of people have been quite isolated and vulnerable, where maybe people are still working in hybrid situations or working from home. I think technology is amazing, but it doesn't often give us the ability to have that social and personal connection. So work meetings, I think, have probably become even more business focused, because the tech is a bit clunky to have a personal conversation between, 10, 20 people on screen, but build it in, practically build it in. Open breakout rooms before 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the meeting starts, so that those conversations that you would have normally had while making a brew together or getting your papers together or whatever, walk into the meeting, can still happen. Organize activities that you can do together, open things like WhatsApp groups or Slack groups or whatever it is that enable people to just chat throughout the day like they would do normally if they were sat in an office. There's so many things that you can do creatively. Do a little warm-up game at the beginning of a meeting, something that enables you to share a bit of information that maybe you didn't know, share something that's made you laugh that week, or something positive that you've done, or a lockdown hack that you've achieved, or we're all desperate for new programs to watch out, the best programs you've watched. It doesn't matter what it is, but something that allows you to share a bit of personal information that develops that slightly deeper bond. All these things, I think, are things that feel quite simple, but they're often things that we miss and we don't do, that are really, really easy to reintroduce.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Emma, for having those ideas in the workplace and for around meetings. I think that's just so valuable, and it's something, it just made me think, I wonder how many, because of my background being in theatre, and drama, like, you just do warm-up games, you warm up. Or now with the work that I do, I remember when I first started doing it, I was thinking people might think I'm weird, but I do a grounding and a connection process before we get to what we're going to be doing on, when I'm working with groups, if I'm doing a parenting session or whatever, so that people can arrive in the room and be present and let go of all the busyness of life that's gone before. And when I first started doing that, I thought, are people going to think I'm a bit weird? And I was like, well, I don't care. I know it works. I know it's valuable.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so great that you shared that. So if anybody is listening to this and you're the person who organizes the meetings or the structure of the meeting, or you're the chair or you're the manager or whatever, there's some great, thank you so much for sharing those great tips that'll help people, to build that connection in at a time when things are, when it's something we're struggling with,
And it's amazing what a difference it makes in terms of the workplace. So, I facilitate strategic partnership meetings across the country in different work that I do. And it's very high level decision makers. And I always start with a game that enables them to connect on a personal level.
Yeah.
And it might be, like I say, share something that's made you smile today, or and what tends to happen is you get a few people that talk about something with their grandkids or their dog or something, and suddenly the fact that that person has clocked somebody else as a dog lover, or somebody else that also has a small grandchild that's made them smile, of a similar age, or sometimes I get people to share unusual hobbies. And the fact, I once had like 5 people in a room that had all suddenly started paddleboarding, which was like a really unusual thing, like that everyone had started doing. But the fact that they'd all clocked each other as that. Actually,
and I bet they didn't know. I bet they didn't know.
They didn't have a clue. They didn't have a clue. You know, or it might be places that they've got in common that they've traveled to. You know, I do various different games, but basically the fact that they've made that personal connection means that the conversation flows more easily, that they relate to each other as somebody that they have something in common with. So when that person then makes a strategic comment that maybe might be opposite to what they would have said, they actually listen to it because they've already gone, this person is somebody that I can connect with. And so their viewpoint is something that I should hear, even if it's not something that I would instantly agree with. Because I feel like a kinship with them, right? So it's worth listening to.
And that's so powerful. That's
really powerful. Yeah, because you suddenly get those strategic conversations happening much more respectfully, much more fluidly, much more openly, just because you formed that little bit of group connection that can sometimes take 5 or 10 minutes. That time is invaluable. If we hadn't done that and you left that to happen organically within a very structured work meeting, it would take weeks, months, years to build that kind of connection. That when you orchestrate it, can take 5 or 10 minutes on a regular basis, dripping it in, and actually has such a big impact on how people feel about themselves, how people connect with others, their sense of well-being, their sense of place within that team or organization. And it has an impact on the work.
Yeah. Oh, I could talk so much so long about these things, but I kind of feel like we've probably got a couple more questions. So I want to ask you a bit about the work that you do, actually, because I think what you've just talked about, because I know your organization is called Shared Harmonies, right?
It is.
So and so what is that about? You know, that work that you do, because I know it's got some of what you just talked about, but other stuff. So tell me about it.
So I founded Shared Harmonies 8 years ago. And it, for me, brought together 3 of my major passions in life. So forming connection through community, improving well-being, and singing, which is something that's been a passion of mine since I was really little. And it's one of the things that I feel really lucky for, because literally a teacher pulled me aside at the end of a school assembly when I was about 4 and said, I think you've got a really lovely voice. I think you can sing, and I want you to sing in the school play. So I just believed him, because at that age you believe absolutely anything you get told, right? Good or bad. And I now know that lots of other people had exactly the opposite experience, and lots of people were told to mime in the school choir that they couldn't sing. Lots of people actually in our society have had their voices shut down at an early age. But my experience at that time was really positive. And I always knew that singing made me feel good. I just didn't really understand why. So setting up this company enabled me to look at the research, to really look at what benefits it had. And singing is literally like a superpower. It's a wonder drug. It does like the most amazing things. So it releases all our 4 happiness hormones, which do incredible things. So it releases endorphins that interrupt our perception of pain and give us that feeling of euphoria. It releases oxytocin, which is the trust hormone that you get when you give somebody a hug. But without needing that like physical contact, you literally get that feeling of like group bonding and trust and connection. So when you sing together, you like literally form that feeling of group togetherness. It releases other happiness hormones that actually improve your creative thinking, your ability to concentrate, stimulate your memory. You know, so like all things that have amazing applications both in life and in work. It's been proven to reduce the amount of stress hormone present in your body. And it helps with posture, breathing. Like, it literally is. It's just incredible. I could go on. I could talk about the benefits of singing like for hours. It's so huge. And so what I wanted to do was, because I'm very aware that other people have had a different experience to me, I wanted to take singing out to people who maybe wouldn't choose to, who've maybe had their voices shut down, but who would get real benefit. So we're a social enterprise. So we've got kind of two distinct arms to the business. We've got a corporate side where we work with teams and organizations to improve their connection, their team ethos, to help improve workplace well-being, because it literally affects kind of positively the top 4 reasons that people tend to go off sick. So we can address that workplace well-being, improve mental well-being, improve happiness. And I also incorporate my background in leadership and training and facilitation. And we also do a leadership program for people, all through using singing as a methodology. And we reinvest all our profits in our community work, which works with people with various long-term health and wellbeing conditions. So people with long-term respiratory conditions like COPD. We're now working with people with long COVID. I work with people that are struggling around mental health, living with dementia, living with Parkinson's. We can also do work around people who've experienced trauma or difficult life experiences. And literally, we use that sense of building that peer support, building that connection, doing the singing work to help people improve their well-being, and people literally shine as a result of it, be it in businesses or communities. It's such a magical transformation that we take people through that has real tangible impacts, and it's such a gift, and again, going back to what we were saying earlier about learning your kind of passion and purpose, I feel so privileged to be able to do this as a job, to have this skill, this sense of something that I can give this gift to other people, and that it makes a difference. It's making a difference in workplaces. There's so much evidence now around having a workplace choir. We've got statistics and feedback from some of the leading companies in the UK, about the difference it's made. And in terms of our community impact on well-being, it's just been amazing. It's been, just so incredible to see that journey that people go through.
So it's really interesting. I love doing podcasts because quite often I will be thinking about a question and then you just answer it. Which you've just done with 2 questions. So one of them was elements that you didn't get to include in your chapter. And I feel like you've kind of been talking a bit about that, more deeply about the work that you do. And the other question is, what do you feel your legacy is? Which I think you've kind of partly just answered. But how, asking you that question, what do you feel that your legacy is?
I have such dreams and ambitions for Shared Harmonies. We're in a huge growth period right now.
What's your vision?
I mean, we have a vision of being one of the leading providers of an ethical and socially responsible team building and wellbeing company. So we want to take this out to as many people as we can possibly reach. And the more we can bring this into the leading workplaces, the more then that we can reinvest money and support people with long-term conditions. And so our, other ambition is to reach as many people as we possibly can through that work as well, so that we're improving well-being, improving happiness, improving lives across, well, not just the UK. We've done bits of international work as well, and we know that this intervention works. We know that it works, and it's amazing. And that kind of, when COVID hit, we literally lost all our work overnight, corporate and community, because we were a model that was based on physically bringing people together and singing, and neither of those things were allowed.
Yeah. Wow.
So we had to reinvent what we did, and all that I had at that moment in time was my passion and my purpose. That's all. That's all I came back to. So my vision is that I am going to, no matter what, keep people connected, keep people uplifted, give people a space where they feel like they've got a sense of community, something that will help improve well-being, something that makes them feel amazing and gives them that opportunity to thrive in the most difficult of circumstances. And that was all I knew. That's all I had.
And I love that because that's what you need.
Yeah.
Like the driving force behind everything, like anything that we do, has to be that purpose, has to be that passion, and that's what creates our legacy, that purpose and that passion. And when everything goes belly up, right, that's what we're left from, but we can rebuild from that place.
Absolutely. And
anytime,
from that place, things got drawn to that energy.
Yes.
And so we had absolutely no idea how we were going to achieve it.
Yeah.
But I just knew we would. That was it. It was as simple as that. And from that place, we literally, we've composed songs with people across the world. We've won awards. I was awarded a Prime Minister's Award for like work supporting communities during lockdown. I was invited to be a fellow of the Royal Society for the Arts. We came runners up in the Song for Yorkshire competition, all things that were done with our participants. So literally everything was about connection. We've done hundreds of Facebook Lives. We've connected hundreds of people across the UK. We've worked with people in residential care homes in the south and north of the country, involving them in this collaborative songwriting competition. Honestly, we've achieved things that if I would never have imagined, if you'd said, what do you want to do during COVID? I would never have mentioned any of those things. They would have been so far out of my reach. But that's exactly what happened, because all those incredible things were drawn to that energy, that conviction of, this is our purpose, this is our passion, and this is what we're here to do. We are here to connect people, to help people thrive, to help people feel that amazing sense of well-being, and that's what we're going to do. And things were drawn to that energy, and yeah, I mean, the company is so different now to what it was, so much further ahead. And like I say, we're now in this like huge phase of potential and growth. It's so exciting.
I love that. Because that's why, that listening to you, it reminds me of why I do what I do. It's to support people to come back to that passion, come back to that purpose, and grow whatever they're doing from there, that impact comes from that. And so when people are feeling unsure or feeling a bit lost, it's that coming back to that is always so important. And having that, everything rooted in that, and that's some of the work that I do with my clients, who, like yourselves, have, their businesses, their organizations, and that impact that they know they want to have, Oh, I love it. So I say this all the time because I could literally talk with you all day about this, all the different strands. But we will bring this to a close now. So what's one thing you'd like to leave the listeners with today?
Be open, I think. Be open to new opportunities, to that growth, to that potential. If you're thinking, oh, I don't know if this book's for me, or I don't know if I need that kind of growth, just be open to it. read different, as authors, we're all so different. We've all come from such different places. Our journeys have been so incredibly different, even living in different places in the country, all sorts of things. So I think that people I think it would be difficult for people not to resonate with something from somebody.
Yeah.
And I just think, be open to that opportunity for that awakening, for that growth, whatever that means for you. And take that time to just see how that feels, and listen to that intuition, and learn to kind of trust and be kind to yourself. So be open, be trusting of yourself, and be kind to yourself, I think, are probably the things that I would leave people with.
That's beautiful, to leave people with that. Oh, thank you. So anybody listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I want to read the book, I want to find out more about Emma, below the podcast, wherever you're watching it, there are links where you can buy the book if you want to buy the book, where you can connect with Emma. There are her links there. So do check those out, so that you can connect further with us. And thank you, Emma, for that, being open and trusting and connecting with that intuition. That's great advice. So we'll finish there. Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
Sarah. Bye.
Thank you.